I always have a certain sympathy for St. Joseph because he lived with two perfect people. So if anything went wrong in the house, it was probably his fault. It wasn't Jesus, it wasn't Mary. There's only three of them. Joseph probably was at the root of it. But Joseph really shines in this gospel. We really see the character of Joseph come through and just how good of a man he is, how holy he is, how he is such a role model to follow. Because there's kind of this narrative, and maybe this is what happened, we don't know, but there's kind of this narrative that Joseph finds out that his wife-to-be Mary is pregnant, not through him, and that he's kind of thinks that she's been fooling around with some other guy and knows that he could expose her to public shame, but decides not to do that and decides to divorce her quietly until an angel comes and kind of lets him know that no, Mary's innocent and you can still take her as your wife. And maybe that's what happened. But another way to view this, and one that I think actually makes more sense when you look at who Joseph is, who Mary is, and what the angel actually says. I just present this to you. That Joseph, it says he was a righteous man, which means he followed the law. He followed the law of God. And the law of God was to expose adultery. So if he's a righteous man, he should expose Mary. But he doesn't do that. Why? I think that Joseph knows the woman he's planning to marry. And if you know Mary, there's no way you could suspect her of any kind of infidelity. I don't think that was in Joseph's heart. However, she's pregnant. And so I think Joseph is realizing there's something going on here that I'm not ready for, I'm not prepared for, I'm not really even worthy. I don't even know what's going on. It's possible, and I think probable, that Mary told Joseph what happened. And he's kind of thinking, wow, an angel, Mary, Son of the Most High God, I don't want to expose her to public shame because no one else is going to believe this story, but I know my bride-to-be, I know Mary, she's telling me the truth. I'm going to separate from her quietly, let whatever God is doing with Mary take place, and I'll just kind of bow out of the story, which would really fit with the humbleness of Joseph. But then this angel appears and says, the first thing he says to Joseph is, do not be afraid to take Mary as your wife. He's saying, don't be afraid. Joseph, you have been chosen as well. Yes, Mary has been chosen to be the mother of the Son of God. But Joseph, don't be afraid. You too have been chosen. You too are supposed to be in this story. You too have a place in this holy family. And he says, she will bear a son, and you are to name him Jesus. He gives Joseph this privilege of naming the child Jesus, to really be a father towards him, to give him this name. And we see the obedience of Joseph. That immediately, it says, when Joseph awoke from sleep, he did as the angel of the Lord commanded him. And he took Mary as his wife. Joseph is obedient to the angel immediately. And he steps into this marriage with this woman who is carrying the Son of God. I'm sure he was still a little nervous. Sure, he still didn't understand all of what was going on. But he had gotten his marching orders from the Lord. Take Mary as your wife. Name this child. Be a father to this child. And he said yes. He said his own version of the fiat, let it be done to me. And he took Mary as his wife. And so I just love St. Joseph. I love his righteousness of following God's law, his holiness, his humility, and at first being like, I don't know if I'm worthy enough to be in this family, but the humility to surrender ultimately his way of thinking, his decisions to the will of God. And so that's something we can imitate him. It's something we can really learn from. Joseph is such an amazing spiritual father for all of us, for the church. And we can look to this story to see these virtues shine forth and imitate them in our own lives.